Alright guys, so it's not going good. We have a shipping disaster on our hands today. The Middle East crisis isn't over, the Red Sea is in chaos, and a major trading route is starting to shut down fast. Big shippers like Maersk were already diverting their vessels away, but it gets worse. The big oil giants are freaking out as well. We need to realize that global supply chains are already stretched very thin. There's the decoupling between the West and China, and that's not gonna stop. Plus, now there's a supply chain nightmare in the Red Sea. And if this isn't solved quickly, that's it for the global economy. The crisis is already wreaking havoc on the energy markets. In our lead story today, oil holds gains as Red Sea attacks cause panic amongst the shippers. Brent crude flies above $78, closing at a 2-week high. Now, companies they are all avoiding the Red Sea route, whether it's shipping containers or oil. That passage is now the danger zone, is the new Bermuda Triangle. It's the pirates of the Red Sea sprinkled with missiles and hijackings. If you bring in any cargo, especially if it's oil, it's going to be blown up or dragged all the way back to Yemen, right? You'll end up in Davy Jones' locker. And that's the reason why Brent crude has flown up. Almost immediately, the price did a reversal from under $75, bouncing up towards $80. Now, will this spike persist and go higher? It really depends. If things continue escalating out of control, we could see the Houthis ramp up their attacks. This is essentially a blowback of not signing a ceasefire. The longer the Gaza war continues, we'll see more gaskets exploding, and the literal framework of our modern economy could start to break down. So the ball is now in America's court, and it looks like they are getting really serious about it. The US just formed a task force to counter the Red Sea threat, but look at the countries involved. The coalition is more or less a collection of Western powers. It's mainly the G7 and their European friends like Norway and Spain. So the Red Sea is now technically under Western control, led by the US. And here's a big concern. What will this task force really do? Will they strike any Houthi vessels they see? And what will be the response from the other side as well? The Houthis might be an Iranian proxy, but they are not under Iran's direct control, right? It's obvious that the Houthis don't really care about anything. They even attacked a US warship a few weeks back with a ton of drones, so we can't rule out any further counterstrikes from them as well. Now, the group has just announced another 2 more vessels attack in the Red Sea, and it doesn't matter what flag the vessel is flying. It used to be only Israeli vessels, but any ship's a target now. We can also see a whole bunch of US warships and destroyers operating in the region. To the Houthis, these are targets as well. As the ships scramble towards the Red Sea, all it takes is one successful strike, and we could be in a regional war where America retaliates directly. This has the potential to send oil to the stratosphere if we get the doomsday scenario. This is the heart of the world's energy source, guys. Almost a third of global oil production comes from the Middle East, and if there's any disruption at all, prices will fly up. Just look at the headlines today. Oil major BP has halted all oil tanker transits through the Red Sea. Norway's national oil company Equinor is also avoiding the region. If more ships are attacked, we're going to see other players like Exxon or even Chevron do the same thing as well. A Suezmax vessel can cost almost $100 million, and if you load it up with oil, that's an additional $70 to $80 million worth of cargo. If that sinks to the ocean floor, that's almost $200 million gone, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Your shipping insurance will go through the roof as well. So oil companies will start to avoid that trading route like the plague. The issue here is the Houthis controlling the Al-Mandab Strait, which is an extremely narrow choke point. All trade going through the Red Sea has to pass through this strait that is under Houthi control. Any vessel passing through will be dodging missiles and hijacking attempts to reach open waters. And of course, this causes the big shipping companies to rethink their strategy. Here's the bigger problem. Pulling up the map of attacks, we can see the conflict is centered directly in the strait. That's where the Houthis either attack or capture passing vessels. But up north is the Suez Canal, which is an extremely vital waterway that powers global trade. If you want to get stuff from the west, especially Europe, to Asia fast, you'll take this route to cut the journey time almost in half. However, if the strait next to Yemen is under attack, this effectively shuts down the Suez Canal as well. No point going through the Suez only to get attacked targeted near Yemen, right? Around 8% of the world's crude oil flows through the Suez Canal. That's over 4 million barrels a day at the baseline. The disruption is already happening. It's not a matter of if, but how bad this situation can really escalate to. We are living in a world of Murphy's Law, guys. What can go wrong will go wrong. A meltdown will mean oil will have to be rerouted around South Africa. You have to burn more oil to travel a longer distance to transport your cargo, right? Traveling from the Suez in Egypt to Rotterdam in Europe takes around 11 days. But if you have no choice but to go around Africa, you're adding at least 26 more days to the voyage. Imagine the amount of delays this will cause to the global supply chain. 12% of world trade goes through the Red Sea. And if they are forced to divert around the Cape of Good Hope, we will have economic chaos on our hands. But if you're making a global voyage from Europe all the way to Asia, this is where you're truly screwed. Going from Asia to Europe takes around 8,400 nautical miles. Swinging by Africa means nearly 12,000 miles or 40% longer voyage. That's more fuel burn and a month added to the journey. Now I know what you might be thinking, right? Another 30 days for your Amazon stuff from China doesn't really matter. They can always fly it over and you're a patient fella. But the issue here is the additional cost for the world at large, the entire world, not just you. Air cargo is at least double or triple the cost versus shipping by sea, probably even more. So supply side inflation is gonna rise. As we move towards a global recession, this will hammer away, keep hammering away at export demand worldwide. Imagine paying double to buy stuff from Europe. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not paying. I simply won't buy anything. The real crisis lies in the energy trade. The flow of energy will be disrupted, and this will spike oil prices higher if things truly get worse. It's not just about production, but getting supply on time. That's equally important as well. Because of the Red Sea shutdown, the major pipelines in the region, they are all affected. The East, West, and the Sumet pipelines are compromised. Ships are afraid of traversing the Red Sea, and the brave souls willing to do so will be charging much more. It's not just crude oil flowing into the region, right? Natural gas is also at risk here. If things erupt even further, transporting LNG is going to cause a bomb. Just look at the figures, it shows a horrible amount of energy that can get disrupted. This will impact how countries source their energy supply. Over 9 million barrels a day of oil flows through the Suez Canal. For LNG, it's over 4 billion cubic feet per day. The magnitude of this disruption can be enormous. By taking out the El Mandeb Strait, the Houthis have effectively choked global supply chains. And that's how fragile this global economy truly is, right? All it takes is one small little strait to get shut down, and we are staring at a new inflation crisis. So, how will the US and France respond to this new threat? This is a clear and present danger that America can't ignore. Unless they stabilize the situation without blowing up the region, we'll see higher prices across the global economy coming soon. We are talking about gas in the tank, prices are going higher, groceries at Walmart, and even higher utility prices as well. We are going to feel this in our wallets, guys. There's no escaping this disaster. The price of oil controls almost everything on planet Earth. Now, the biggest loser here, once again, is gonna be Europe. The Eurozone is screwed because a lot of their energy, both oil and gas, comes from the Middle East. Once again, the curse of decoupling from cheap Russian energy strikes again. Because of the Houthi attacks, the EU might have to source energy from elsewhere. Let's pull up the map again. Oil and gas exports from the Middle East will be disrupted. Europe gets a lot of supply from countries including Qatar. The supply has to flow through the Strait of Hormuz, past the Gulf of Aden, and through the Yemen choke point into the Red Sea. Because of all the attacks, Europe is screwed. Supply from the Middle East is now compromised. Not only will it cost more to transport, there's now an additional 30 days of travel time you have to factor in. And what do we have coming in December and January? Winter is arriving. The White Walkers are coming for Europe. A cold winter will spell doom for Europe because they'll have to scramble for energy supplies and they'll have to do it fast. And where do you think they'll head to? Just look at the numbers and you'll get a big clue. Just this year alone, over 46% of LNG came from the US, followed by 12% from Russia. Europe is still not well diversified enough. So don't be surprised if all the EU countries start importing more gas from America at all costs. And I mean at all costs. They won't want to buy from the Russians for obvious reasons. The Americans aren't running a charity either. Any emergency supply will be sold at a higher cost, which will trickle down to the people living in Europe. The big boys, China and America, won't be really affected by this. America is energy self-sufficient, plus they have Canada up north, right? While China's biggest suppliers comes from Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil. These supplies don't need to go through the Yemen Strait or the Suez Canal, so it's largely a non-event for the bigger powers. The biggest loser is the EU because of where they are located. But let's talk about the threat of escalation. Can this get out of hand? The primary risk here is the continuation of the conflict in Gaza. Until a lasting ceasefire happens, things could get even worse. We need to war game this out. A week ago, America vetoed the latest UN resolution. The world wanted a ceasefire, but the US said no. Here's the US statement for the veto. This would only plant the seeds for the next war because Hamas has no desire to see a durable peace, to see a two-state solution. Even if we buy this answer, it doesn't change the fact that it's starting to escalate the current war that we are in now. Until the US capitulates, we have no idea what the next crisis will be. If you want further confirmation of chaos to come, Lloyd Austin, the defense secretary, just gave us another red flag. In fact, it's 100 red flags. According to him, America won't dictate to Israel over the war's timeline. The US is suddenly taking a softer approach to Netanyahu, and diplomatic cover will continue. We have absolutely no idea when this will end. It might end next month or in the next 5 years. Who knows, right? The US is not going to force a ceasefire on Israel, so there's no point in crossing our fingers. The conflict is going to last as long as it needs to. This will definitely spill over into 2024 and maybe even 2025. But the longer this drags on, the more eruptions can happen in the Middle East. Now that the Red Sea is under attack, I think it's fair that we talk about the Strait of Hormuz. Remember, over 20 million barrels of oil a day passes through Hormuz. It's a choke point that's directly located at the source of oil production. Oil from the UAE, Saudi Arabia, LNG from Kuwait and Qatar, they all have to go through this choke point. Now, I have no idea what might block this vital shipping lane, guys. Maybe the Iranians finally have had enough, or the Houthis expand their operations. But if that happens, oh boy, oil at 90 or even 100 isn't impossible. We can kiss goodbye to a soft landing. It'll be a crash landing without any parachutes. Can you just imagine the Federal Reserve cutting rates when there's a new oil crisis? That won't happen, or they'll never reach their 2% inflation target in this decade. They are really starting to regret signaling 3 rate cuts next year. The Federal Reserve is now pushing back against any early rate cuts in 2024. They are saying that rate cuts in March are premature. We have seen the epic market rally over the past week. That isn't good for inflation because things are heating up once again. Something tells me that they know the underlying risks in the system. They want to cut rates to prevent a recession and stick the landing. But if the Middle East goes kaboom again, they'll be forced to keep rates higher for longer. So realize the big risk that we are all facing is an inflationary shock that could take us all by surprise. It will hammer consumer demand further and prevent central banks from easing their policy. But let me know what you think. Will the Red Sea crisis escalate even further? Will a ceasefire ever come? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these crazy times.